I'm definitely on the fence with how I feel about 999. On the one hand, I didn't care for the narrative as a whole. That's more of a personal preference thing, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But there were several things in this that I thought worked really well. This was released in 2016. It's directed by John Hillcoat. It's written by Matt Cook, and we have a cast including Casey Affleck, Woody Harrelson. It's because of Woody Harrelson that I wanted to watch this, and I was pleased about that because I'm trying to get into films like this. I'm trying to get into more action films, crime films, thrillers like this. It's not my go-to when it comes to thrillers. And I was keen to see how I'd feel about it because it's about this rather large heist, a very dark and dangerous heist. And obviously lives are at stake, and I don't want to say too much about that. I really don't want to give away anything else. I don't care about heists. As soon as I hear a film is about a heist, my initial reaction is to say no thank you. I just find it so boring. But, as I said, I am trying to watch more films like this. And I will say the narrative it didn't work for me. I gave it a chance. It didn't appeal to me. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. The pacing is very good. It's a very quick film, by which I mean there's a lot of action. We are constantly moving forward. It is a little long. It's nearly 2 hours. And in my opinion, it doesn't need to be 2 hours long. There were definitely things that could have been left out, a few scenes that maybe could have been a little bit shorter, but in general, I still felt like the pacing was very good. We were constantly moving forward. It's just sometimes we were moving forward, and then we'd meet a little bit of fluff, and then we'd move on again. So it's not the worst length, but personally, I think we could have shaven off 15, 20 minutes. So the narrative itself, I didn't care for it. I tried. It didn't work. I'll try again with another heist film. But, as I said, there are some really strong points about this. The performances are very good. The characters are very well written. And it is dark. And I have a very high threshold for when it comes to films that have quite dark, disturbing scenes in them. It just goes with the territory of having watched a lot of horror films. The more gruesome, gory things I see, I guess the more acclimatized I become. And with this, there were a few moments that made me wince. There were a few moments that made me not quite look away, but pull back a little bit because they were very dark, kind of gory at times, very in your face. Not throughout the whole thing. So if you can only take that in small doses, that will still be fine. But I was very impressed with that they didn't shy away from anything that was too graphic, because I think that it makes it more shocking and it makes it a much more interesting experience. With that in mind, it is obviously worth... I never do this, but I was going to say it's actually rated a 15. I never point out certificate ratings in film discussions, and maybe I should. But in the UK, it's rated 15. In the States, it's rated R. And I'll be honest, I was very shocked that it was rated 15. But maybe 15-year-olds are able to cope with this kind of thing. I've got no idea. I couldn't. Ironically, I was a very timorous child for a very long time, and anything that was this dark would have not scared me necessarily, but made me feel very uneasy, whereas that's kind of the opposite now. So it worked very well for me, but I know that part of it won't be for everybody. So in general, I'd say it's very well done. We have a lot of action, a lot of dark moments, some really great camera work as well to keep up with the quick pace of the movement. And as I said, the characters were very well written, the performances were very good. The narrative seems to be decent. It still doesn't work for me. And maybe one day I'll find a crime thriller, heist-based film that I will really enjoy. But for now, I didn't love the narrative of 999, but there were a lot of other really strong elements. Had it been shorter, I might have been a little bit more on board with the narrative, because it would have obviously been executed a little bit more quickly. But again, I still don't think I would have loved the story. But the characters are good, the performances are good, the action part of it is very well delivered, and as I said, it is quite intense at certain points. 999 is not a film that I loved. I didn't care for the narrative based purely on personal preference. But at the same time, part of me is glad that I watched it, because there were elements in it that I really enjoyed. If you can recommend any heist films that you think I might like, please feel free to do so. I'm sure there will be some out there that I like. 999 isn't one of them based on the narrative, but otherwise, it seems like a pretty decent film.